Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Pivot Live. Today, we're going to be talking about renewable siting, specifically if you're a small to medium business, such as a renewable developer or an engineering firm. My name is Stacy McBride, and I'll be your host for today's meeting. Before we jump in, I'd like to just go through a few housekeeping logistics. All attendees have been muted. If you aren't muted, please put yourself on mute, as well as disable your cameras. If you'd like to ask a question at any time throughout the webinar, you can use the chat feature located at the top of your GoToMeeting screen or on the right sidebar. We are recording today's webinar. You can share it with your friends or watch it again, and a survey will be sent to you after we're done. We want to know what you think of our software and this session today, as well as get suggestions or input on future topics. So Pivvot is a software. We're a location data and software company. We streamline siting, suitability analysis, and permitting for infrastructure projects by providing actionable, accurate data. We have curated a massive database of land, environmental, parcel, and socioeconomic data, and we make it easy to access and share through our simple, familiar, and analysis platform. We work with renewable developers, small to medium engineering firms, and utilities to enable site assessments and analysis of substations and interconnects. We want you to understand the environmental constraints, political risks, social risks, and permitting requirements of a project early on in the process. We're going to dive into how specifically we work for renewables, but we've been in the energy industry for a long time, and we've worked in all different types of assets. So we can help you site just about anything or route long linear assets such as electric transmission corridors or pipelines. So keep in mind that everything you'll see today could be applied to any industry. So for renewables specifically, we specialize in renewable energy, and we have pulled in 550 data sources that include things like property parcels, existing transmission lines, substations, things you need to know about when you're developing a solar farm or wind farm. We've also pulled in environmental data, hydrology information, and other critical data sets that help you evaluate the suitability of a land. Our software automates the process of siting and suitability, and you'll see in the demonstration today how quickly you can do a desktop analysis. Whether you're getting a preliminary analysis for a project and you need a quick review, whether you may be filling out an RFP and need to understand the scope of the work, you can see from today's demonstration how quickly you can do a desktop site analysis and really get a good sense of what's going on in the area you're looking to build. And then last, we also streamline interconnect routing. Unlike a lot of the competition out there, we don't stop at the site assessment. We help you find out how you're going to connect to the grid, and we have a routing scenario tool that allows you to evaluate multiple options. So I'm going to introduce our speakers. We have two folks from the Pivvot team with us today, Brendan Leddy and Erica Fleming. Brendan is account executive here at Pivvot, and he has many years of experience in the asset management software realm. He is especially well versed in renewable assets, and Brendan will be guiding our conversation today as the subject matter expert, sharing his client's expertise along the way. Erica is a customer success manager at Pivvot. She works closely with our clients to ensure their success with our tools and build out specific workflows based on their industry. She really helps them get into our data and understand how the software can supplement their workflows to be successful. So she's going to be our technical expert today and walk us through a demo of our software. So as we tee up for the demo, we're going to talk about renewable development today. So before we dive into our technology, I'm going to ask Brendan to go over typical issues facing renewable developers today. We know there's a lot of tax credits on the table, and we know there's a race to market right now. So Brendan, can you tell us what the top concerns of developers are who are trying to build in the renewable and specifically solar industry right now?
Sure. We need to be able to identify and evaluate potential sites fast, along with geography and suitability being very important for these sites, as well as land ownership being critical for them. For permitting, getting an early analysis of permits is critical to these projects. Sometimes there's permit restrictions that are so great, it makes more sense to pick a different location than to wait. And knowing if a project is near or on protected areas, historical sites, wetlands, and floodplains is critical as well. As on top of that, companies need construction permits too, and interconnection to the grid. Land is tiered by tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and it's based on proximity to a substation or transmission to the grid. So for large utility scale projects, we already know most of the tier 1 parcels, which are intersected by a line or substation. However, it's the tier 2s, which are within close proximity, that are getting gobbled up fast. We need to be able to quickly assess proximity and the routes to the grid before competition does.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. We will definitely be able to address all of those issues in our webinar today. And to tee up how we're gonna analyze our location, can you tell us, Brendan, for those who may be new to renewable site selection, how, like, a high level view of how sites are identified and evaluated today?
Sure, sure. So I'm seeing clients select sites one of two ways, and one option is that they have a general idea of the area they want to build on, but they need to understand the parcel ownership, permitting, land use, and other critical variables to consider before kicking off the project. And the other option is that we know the parcel. We already know the parcel that's been selected. So what we need to find out is who owns the parcel and what else do they own? Is it nearby? And is this parcel suitable for a renewable project?
Cool. In our demonstration today, I'm going to hand things over to Erica now, and while we're changing hands, um, in our demonstration today, we're going to be showing the first option you described, where we have a general sense of the area that we want to build in, and so we're going to be evaluating that whole area and a couple different spots where we could build. At the very end of the demonstration, I'll be able to also show how, if you already know your parcel that you want to build on and you need to get that deep dive assessment, we'll be able to show that option as well. So it looks like Erica's screen is up here. A couple things I'd like to keep in mind today while you're listening in is that you can really leverage our technology. It's super easy and super simple to use, to do that desktop at-a-glance site analysis and also conduct preliminary routing analysis. The data that you're going to see here today has been curated specifically for energy companies, and it's lightning fast, but also very, very accurate. We're going to be able to show you how we can drill down deep into specific reports and help you meet permitting requirements, and then also talk a little bit at the very end about project management. So Erica, you are ready to roll.
Thanks, Stacey. Okay, so for our demo today, I'm just going to kind of dive right into this. So what you're seeing first on my screen is going to be our collaboration aspect of our platform, which is known as our map view. And so inside of our map view, you have what is known as a site view. And so a site view in Pivvot terms is a project to everyone else. So here at Pivvot, you're looking at our Pivvot-aware site view. So this area that you're looking at right now is an area that I've chosen for a potential solar farm area, and we're just to the west of Savannah, Georgia. And so the first thing I did was I typed into my search panel over to the left-hand side of my screen an address in Savannah, Georgia. And this acts exactly like Google Maps, since Google Maps is our base map inside of our platform. So I went ahead, typed in that address, and I zoomed to this location. And so the first thing I want to do inside of this platform is I want to just have a very high level analysis of the general area that I'm looking at. So the way that I can do that is come over here to our layers flyout, and we're going to have our pivot layers down here. And our pivot layers are all the data sets that we have curated. And so I can come and I can start to turn on these layers and assess things such as NHD flow lines in these areas that I'm interested in, NHD water bodies. And I can even come down here and turn on the property parcels. and really get an idea of the two different areas that I'm going to be potentially working in. And so what you're looking at right here are these two polygons that I have placed using our Aware tool. And our Aware tool is something that is enabled inside of the site view. And I just drop a geometry of my choice, so a point line or a polygon, and in this case, a polygon made sense. I went ahead and drew those two polygons onto my map. I named the locations, I set a buffer distance, and I determined what data sets that I want to report on. And so once I determined all these different aspects of my Aware project, I went ahead and submitted them into our system. And once I submit that Aware project, it'll take about 8 to 10 minutes to run. And all the results that I get back is every single data point that intersects and the information that intersects these two polygons. So after my project is complete running, I can come into my reporting console of my project. And again, you saw that I had those two different polygon locations. And so I can toggle on both of those locations, come over to my crossing summary comparison report, and start to really deep dive into this information and compare those two locations side by side. And for this example, I only use the two locations, but I can use an Aware project that just has one location, or I can make 10 if I'd like to. There's no limit. And so as I scroll down and look at all these different data sets that I could be interested in, I'm going to go ahead and use property parcel as my example. So I can see in between my two different locations that I've chosen, you know, one location I'm only dealing with 2 property parcels versus 20 in my other location. But I want to know more about these property parcels. And that's what I can do is come over to this detail report section. I can scroll down to my property parcel, select it, and then I can really see every single attribute of the different property parcels I could be dealing with. And again, I can even click on these, map them in the below map, and see exactly what parcel lies within which location. And so if I'm interested in sharing this information with other members of my team, I can go ahead and select either one of these records, and I can just download these into an Excel file and send on this information. So now that you've seen an Aware project kind of from a very high level beginning to end, we're now going to watch it in action and how I'm going to connect one of these locations into the grid. So I'm going to go back to my mapping portion of the platform. I'm going to go ahead and zoom back to my project area that I was in. I'm going to turn over to map view. It's a little bit easier on the eyes when we're drawing lines. And so I'm going to choose this location for my next Aware project. And so since I'm going to be placing lines to connect this to the grid, I'm first going to find the neighboring substation. So this point over here, this little yellow dot, is my substation symbology. So I can see that's my nearest one. And then I can see all of these existing power lines, which are these pink and orange lines. So again, I'm going to select my geometry that I want to use. I'm going to name my project. I'm going to name my first line, option 1, and I'm going to select the geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my first line following this kind of main channel over to my substation. And I'll just double click when I'm finished with my first line. Here I can slide my buffer. And for this example, I'm just going to keep it as 1/10 of a mile. And then my little cogwheel is all the different data sets that I would like to report on. So for this example, I've taken every single one of my pivot layers and moved it over to the reporting data sets category. But again, if I only wanted to know about aquifers, I can just move over that single data set if I would like. So since I'm happy with those, I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then now that I'm done with my first option, I'm going to save that first location, and I'm going to draw my second location now. So option 2, select my geometry, and we're going to go a little bit different way up here. So let's go up Pine Street and go this way to my substation. So again, now I have those two paths going to my substation, and I'm going to keep my 10-foot mile buffer on this one as well. Save that location, and I'm going to submit that project into our system. So again, that would take about 8 to 10 minutes to fully complete, but in that time, I can go ahead and, just like I did with the different solar locations, I can come into this reporting console and I can start to really compare side by side those two different pathways and what's going to be the best fit for my company.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica. Sorry about the delay there. I was on mute. This is fantastic. I think this is really cool. I like how you showed the parcels that are nearby, and I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into that, the parcels that are nearby and the parcels that are intersecting. And I'm going to ask Brendan for some help on this. So Brendan, can you tell us specifically, like, what data, what top considerations in data solar developers are looking for when they're evaluating a parcel?
So we talked about existing substations and power lines, but adding to that, we need to evaluate a 100-year floodplain, NWI wetlands, NHD water bodies, endangered species, slope aspect, slope suitability, and land cover too. So all of these are going to inform us if a parcel is suitable for a renewable project.
That's perfect. And the crossing and impact reports that Erica showed, you could derive that information. You can pull it, you can click on it, you can, find it. But at Pivvot, we've taken it a step further. And I mentioned this early on when in the demonstration here, we've actually developed a parcel report that captures all the data that you just mentioned into a single output, rather than building a project and going through the workflow that Erica just showed. While it's very simple, if you already know a landowner whose property parcels you are potentially going to build on because they're either leasing their property out or you've worked with them in the past, or you know for sure because you've run an aware project that you have a specific parcel that you want to evaluate a little bit deeper, we also offer this parcel reporting that pulls in those very specific data sources that are most important to our solar developers, and allows you to generate this report by just simply adding an APN address or APN number, your address, or a lat log. So you can see, as indicated on the screen, that you'll get a quick assessment of what's included in that parcel. And then you're also going to get a detailed description and satellite view of that parcel to see what's intersecting. So as indicated here on the screen, if it's got a green check, that would mean that information has been found in or around that parcel. If it's got a red X, that would mean that information has, not been found in that area, which in the sense of floodplains is a good thing. We certainly don't want to be in a floodplain. So a green check is this information is included. The red X is this information is not. And not because we don't have it, but because it's not intersecting the pipeline or the renewable source. So Brendan, do you see your clients using this type of report?
Yeah, absolutely. And while the parcel report is a new functionality for us, we've had solar developers, utilities, and even commercial real estate companies reaching out to us for this type of data. The best part of our report is that we don't even have to set up a project to generate it. We're offering the ability to generate this report by just entering an address, a lat log, or APN number, and the report takes only a few minutes to generate and download.
Perfect. And after we've identified the site, really evaluated these parcels, what would be the next logical step in our process?
So the next step is permitting, and all of our clients ask about permit requirements and if we can help build a permit list for them.
Excellent. So this feature is actually something we're working on right now. We haven't launched it yet. I believe it's slated to be launched in mid-November. But the next step in the process is, as Brendan just mentioned, is that we can now develop a report that will generate a permit list on your behalf. So you can easily take the information that we've had showed in either our WARE tool or the parcel information that you're developing a parcel report on, and generate this permit matrix that shows you if a permit is triggered, but indicated by the green check, or if it is not triggered, indicated by the red X. It doesn't really stop there. It tells you what triggered the permit requirement and then gives a detailed description of the governing body that is requiring that permit, as well as details about why you need to go and fulfill it. So we're pretty excited about this functionality. And if you're signed up for Pivvot newsletters and Pivvot content, you should get a notification when this functionality has been released. Everything else we saw today, though, you should be able to get right away. We just have one more topic, and then we're going to open up it to questions to everyone. So Erica, you talked a bit at the very beginning of our webinar about our site views and our collaboration portal. And I think from the work that you showed today, the workflows and the site views, that we basically, an individual or a small team could have used Aware or parcel reportings to generate some desktop analysis pretty quickly. But once the project's been green lighted and you're ready to actually start building this renewable site, can you continue to leverage the Pivvot platform as your collaboration tool?
Sure. So everything you've seen today during our demo is built into our site views, which can easily be shared with stakeholders internally or externally. So you saw how easy our tools are to use, and any member of your team can get started with little to no training. You also saw that the crossing and impact reports can be downloaded or shared from a site view, so engineers can build those cost estimates, materials list, or conduct any other analysis that they need to. And then finally, you can also add your own data in addition to the Pivvot data, so your team is working from a single source and they'll always have access to the most up-to-date information from the beginning to the end of the project.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to do a quick summary, and while I'm doing the summary, I'd invite the folks on the call to send in questions. If you have any questions about the software that you saw today or our data, we'd be happy to dive deep into the details. I'd also invite anyone on the call who'd like to see a private demo and really get into a specific project, a specific piece of a specific asset or type of infrastructure that you're building for your clients, that we would be happy to provide this demo one-on-one. So just as a quick takeaway while questions are coming in, thank you all for joining us. And as I hope you saw today, Pivvot streamlines siting suitability to get to market faster. We know that these renewable sites are getting gobbled up. People want to take advantage of these tax credits, and it really is a race to market to beat your competition. We hope that you can see that you could easily do a high-level route assessment and avoid pitfalls and scheduling delays when you are evaluating how to connect to the grid. As you can see, we're going to be launching a tool to help you quickly assess permitting requirements and even generate a permitting list. And I hope that you got a sense of how deep our data is. We've been curating this data for 6 or 7 years now, even before we launched as a company, and really with the energy sector in mind. So we go pretty deep on the data, and we can continue to slice and dice it for our clients and for your clients to make it as valuable as possible. And then as Erica showed at the very end, you can manage a project from beginning to closeout. And, we were built based on a kind of as-builting model, and we originally were used for project management. And we've added on this data and these other functionalities to really help kick off those projects and set them up for success much earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and look here at our window and see if we've got any questions coming in. All right, so our first question I think is going to be for Brendan. Brendan, can you tell us specifically about our solar data again, and what the top data you need was to evaluate a solar site?
Okay, so it typically depends on the project and the companies that we're working with. Sometimes the needs change, but like I just mentioned before, it comes down to slope, NWI wetlands, floodplain, a number of environmental and engineering data, depth to bedrock as well to find a suitable location. I just worked on a project where they were actually looking to have their solar solar panels closer to a wetland than typical before. Also, like I mentioned, proximity to substations. You want to be able to have the shortest interconnection to a substation to draw energy from as well. And that data is available through Pivvot's database update, as well as we're constantly doing the heavy lifting on making sure that information is up to date for you.
Awesome, thank you. Our question, I think I'll take this next question. It says, does your permitting list include local, such as county? The permitting list that'll be released shortly is based on jurisdictional information, and I believe is at the federal and state level today. It'll include things like U.S. Fish and Wildlife boundaries and United States Army Corps. I do not believe this first iteration will include county data. However, it will certainly in the future. And we also are releasing a secondary, we didn't mention it today in our demonstration, but we're releasing a secondary reporting tool that allows renewable developers or engineering firms, you have subject matter experts in-house that have, for lack of a better term, like collective knowledge, tribal knowledge, boots on the ground information, like that's in their heads that they really know. Our new feature allows you to upload that local knowledge and report on it too. And so we'll see, not only will we be adding county data and county requirements in the future, but you'll be able to even put in your own information that you know about an area and report on that too. Our last question is, Erica, for you, when we share these site views, you talked about the collaboration platform and sharing with folks. You also mentioned that you can share the reports. Can you talk a little bit more about how easy it is to share the content that we generated today?
Sure. So inside of that mapping platform that we saw, we have that option to, as long as somebody has access to your site view and we have a Pivvot account, they can look at that ongoing project. The Aware project that I created, again, as long as somebody has access to a site view that the Aware tool is on, you can share that Aware project with them. It'll go directly into their site view and they can just add it to the map super easily. So in addition to that, we can also download all of our Pivvot data in our project area, and that'll go into a file geodatabase format. So you can easily, if you're an ARC fan, you can easily take that, go over into ArcGIS and look at our data inside of your use.
That's a really great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, our data is absolutely compatible with your current GIS. If you're working on behalf of a client and you need to use their system, you can pull data out of ours, all these reports out of ours, and import it into any system. And we also see folks using our reports and sending it off to the cost estimating team, to the material development or materials list folks, making sure that, for every crossing you have the materials and the links, and you could start to put together your estimates and really provide a better estimate to your client. So that brings us to the end of our demonstration. Thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions or would like to see a private demo, please contact Brendan. Brendan would be your best contact. You can also reach out to the email that you received to sign up for this, and we'll get you set up. So thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day.